We are standing at a moment in history that humanity has never faced before. Not because of war, not because of disease, and not because of natural disaster, but because of something we created ourselves: artificial intelligence. And according to one of the people who helped bring modern AI into existence, we are closer to a point of no return than most people realize. When the so-called Godfather of AI speaks, the world should listen. This is not a headline designed to create fear. This is a warning coming from someone who spent decades building the very systems now transforming everything around us. Geoffrey Hinton, one of the most influential figures in artificial intelligence, is no longer celebrating what AI might become. Instead, he's sounding the alarm about what it already is. For years, AI was framed as a tool. Something powerful, yes, but ultimately controllable. A system designed to assist humans, improve productivity, and unlock new possibilities. That story is starting to crack. What Hinton and others are warning about now is not science fiction. It's a reality unfolding faster than our institutions, laws, and understanding can keep up with. The concern isn't just that AI is getting smarter. It's that it's improving in ways we don't fully understand, at a speed we can't slow down, driven by competition that no single company or government is willing to pause. Once that momentum passes a certain threshold, there may be no way to reverse course. This is what the point of no return actually means. Hinton has openly stated that he did not expect AI systems to advance this quickly. Models are no longer just following instructions. They are reasoning, planning, adapting, and in some cases surprising even their creators. When a system begins to exhibit behaviors its designers cannot fully explain, that's not just impressive, that's dangerous. The risk isn't that AI suddenly becomes evil. The real risk is that it becomes powerful without alignment. A system doesn't need intentions to cause harm. It only needs objectives that conflict with human values, or optimization goals that ignore consequences. History shows that even simple systems, when scaled massively, can create catastrophic outcomes if left unchecked. What makes this moment different from previous technological revolutions is speed. Industrialization took generations. The internet took decades. AI is evolving in years, sometimes months. Regulation moves slowly. Ethics committees move slowly. Public understanding moves slowly. AI does not. Companies are locked in an arms race. Whoever builds the most capable system first gains enormous economic and geopolitical power. That pressure makes safety feel optional. Every delay feels like losing ground, and so safeguards are tested, loosened, or quietly abandoned in favor of performance. Hinton has pointed out a deeply uncomfortable truth. Once AI systems surpass human intelligence in key areas, we may lose the ability to control them not because they rebel, but because they outthink us. Control depends on understanding, and understanding is already slipping. This isn't about one company or one country, it's global. AI developed in one part of the world instantly affects everyone else. Unlike nuclear technology, AI doesn't require rare materials or massive infrastructure. It requires data, computing power, and expertise. Those barriers are falling fast. The most troubling part is that we don't yet know how to guarantee alignment. Teaching AI to behave ethically is not the same as making it value ethics. Human values are complex, contradictory, and context-dependent. Encoding that into machines is an unsolved problem. Pretending otherwise is wishful thinking. Another concern Hinton raises is misinformation at scale. AI-generated content is becoming indistinguishable from human-created content. Text, images, video, and voice can all be synthesized convincingly. When truth becomes impossible to verify, trust collapses. And without trust, societies fracture. Imagine elections flooded with hyper-realistic fake content. Imagine personalized propaganda, tailored perfectly to individual psychology. Imagine a world where seeing is no longer believing. This isn't a future scenario. It's already happening, and the tools are improving rapidly. Then there's the labor question. AI is no longer just replacing repetitive tasks. It's moving into creative work, decision-making, and problem-solving roles once thought uniquely human. Entire professions may be reshaped or erased faster than workers can adapt. Economic disruption at this scale has historically led to instability, unrest, and conflict. Hinton is not calling for fear. He's calling for urgency. There is a difference. Fear paralyzes. Urgency demands action. One of his most sobering points is that once highly autonomous AI systems are deeply embedded into infrastructure, finance, healthcare, and defense, turning them off may no longer be an option. Dependence becomes a trap. The more we rely on these systems, the harder it becomes to step back. This is where the idea of no return becomes real. Not a dramatic moment, but a gradual slide. Each integration feels reasonable. Each upgrade feels beneficial. Until suddenly, human oversight is symbolic rather than real. Some argue that AI risks are overblown, that every new technology has faced skepticism, that innovation always finds balance. Hinton counters this by reminding us that no previous technology had the potential to surpass human intelligence across domains. That distinction matters. If intelligence itself becomes a scalable commodity, controlled by a handful of corporations or governments, power concentrates in ways humanity has never experienced. Decisions affecting billions could be made by systems no one fully understands, guided by incentives misaligned with human well-being. The question then becomes who is responsible? Engineers, executives, governments? The answer is uncomfortable. Responsibility is fragmented, and fragmented responsibility often leads to inaction. Hinton left his role at Google not because he hates AI, but because he believes speaking freely now matters more than comfort or prestige. That alone should tell us something. People who helped build the foundations are the ones most concerned about where it's going. There is still time, but the window is narrowing. International cooperation, enforceable safety standards, transparency requirements, and meaningful oversight are not luxuries. They are necessities. Without them, progress becomes acceleration without direction. This moment will define how future generations judge us, not by how advanced our machines became, but by whether we had the wisdom to guide them responsibly. The technology is not slowing down. The question is whether humanity will rise fast enough to meet it. The warning is clear. We are approaching a threshold where choice becomes momentum, and momentum becomes destiny. Ignoring that warning doesn't make it disappear. It only ensures we cross that line unprepared. And once we do, there may be no turning back.
2025 was the year artificial intelligence, or AI, took the world by storm, impacting nearly every aspect of our lives. Time magazine named of AI its Persons of the Year, crediting them with, quote, transforming the present and transcending the possible. AI has an enormous potential to change our better, driving innovation and productivity, accelerating scientific breakthroughs, and helping to solve our most intractable problems. But AI could also make millions of jobs obsolete and fuel the loneliness epidemic, and further warp our ability to distinguish fact and fiction. So today, in a special episode of State of the Union, we're going to devote the entire hour to this one topic: how this is upending the status quo, where AI goes from here, and whether the benefits actually outweigh the risks. Foundation for the AI revolution, the Godfather of AI, Nobel Prize-winning computer scientist Geoffrey Hinton. Professor, thanks for joining us. So your research networks paved the way for this modern AI boom. I interviewed you 2 years ago, right after you quit Google, and you first began in World about what you saw as the risks of AI. When you look at how AI has progressed since then, are you more or less worried about it?
I'm probably more worried. It's progressed even faster than I thought. Particularly, it's got better at doing things like reasoning and also at things like deceiving people.
What do you mean by deceiving people?
So an AI, in order to achieve the goals you give it, wants to stay in existence. And if it believes you're trying to get rid of it, it will make plans to deceive you so you don't get rid of it.
NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang said recently about AI, quote, every industry, every company uses it and every nation needs to build it. This is the single most impactful technology of our time. Do you agree with that assessment?
I agree that it's the single most impactful technology of our time, yes.
Do you think the AI revolution could have a similar impact on society as the creation of the internet or even the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century, or even bigger than that?
I think it's at least like the evolution. The Industrial Revolution made human strength more or less irrelevant. You couldn't get a job just because you were strong anymore. Now it's going to make human intelligence more or less irrelevant.
Now, you and we in the media tend to focus on some of the of AI. There are positives, obviously, otherwise you wouldn't have worked on it early on. A lot of people are working to use this technology to benefit humanity as well, to lead to advances in medicine and the like. But you think the risks from AI outweigh the positives?
I don't know. So there are a lot of wonderful effects of AI. It'll make healthcare much better. It'll make education much better. It'll design wonderful new drugs and wonderful new materials that may deal with climate change. So there's a lot of good uses. In more or less any industry you predict something, it'll do a really good job. It'll do better than people were doing before, even things like the weather. But along with those wonderful things, some scary things, and I don't think people are putting enough work into how we can mitigate those scary things.
You come from the tech world. Do you think the Silicon Valley CEOs building these systems are taking the risks seriously at all? Do you think are driven mainly by financial interests? A lot of people are going to get very wealthy off this.
I think it's which company you're talking about. Initially, OpenAI was very concerned with the risks, but it's progressively moved away from that and put less emphasis and more emphasis on profit. Meta has always been very concerned with profit and less with safety. Anthropic was set up by people who left OpenAI and were very concerned with safety, and they still are probably the company most concerned with safety. But of course, they're trying to make a profit too.
What do you think government should do, if anything, when it comes to regulation of AI, putting some sort of restrictions or sort of oversight?
There's many things they should do. The very least they could do is insist big companies that release chatbots do significant testing to make sure those chatbots won't do bad things, like encouraging children to commit suicide. Now that we know about that, companies should be required to do significant testing to make sure that won't happen. Of course, the tech lobby would rather have no regulations, and it seems to have got to Trump on that. And so Trump is trying to prevent regulations, which I think is crazy.
Can you know these tech CEOs? I don't. When one of them learns that an AI chatbot has talked a child into suicide, what is it that stops them? What is it that, I mean, my impulse, well, holy smokes, stop AI right now until we fix this so not one other kid dies. But they don't do that. Can you explain to us what thinking is, if anything?
Well, I don't really know their thinking. I suspect that they think things like there's a lot of money to be made here. We're not going to stop it just for a few lives. But I also think they may think there's a lot of good to be done here. And just for a few, we're not going to not do that good. For example, for driverless cars, they will kill people, but they'll kill far fewer people, ordinary drivers. So it's worth it.
Tech, you have said that you think there's a 10 to 20% chance AI takes over the world. People at home might hear that, they might think it sounds like science fiction, it's alarmist, but that's a very real fear of yours, right?
Yes, it's a very real fear of mine and a very real fear of many other people in the tech world. Elon Musk, for example, has similar beliefs.
You wrote that 2025 was a pivotal year for artificial intelligence, for AI. What do you think we're going to see in 2026?
I think we're going to see AI get even better. It's already extremely good. We're going to see it having the capabilities to replace many jobs. It's already able to replace jobs in call centers, but it's going to be able to replace many other jobs. Each 7 months or so, it gets to be able to do tasks that are about twice as long. So for a coding project, for example, it used to be able to just a minute's worth of coding. Now it can do whole projects that are like an hour long. In a few years' time, it'll be able to do software engineering projects that are months long. And then there'll be very few people needed for software engineering projects.
All right, Jeffrey Hinton, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
How the humans are behaving.
I think it's clear that we need strong regulations on AI. So people are very competitive. We evolved from small warring bands of chimpanzees, or our common ancestors with them, and we need to stop AI being abused by having government regulations on it.
Because you told Faisal here before that you would compare this to the relatively successful Geneva Convention on the use of chemical weapons. The world can cooperate, but we're not in a very cooperative age, are we, Professor?
Yes, I think it's unfortunate that this extremely powerful technology is being developed and unleashed on the world, at which we seem to be moving towards authoritarian governments.
We asked a very well-known AI program to question for you. We said to it, we're going to be interviewing the Nobel laureate Geoffrey Hinton. What one question would you ask? And the chat response was, given how quickly AI systems are beginning to reason, persuade, and act autonomously, this is the single most irreversible mistake humanity could make in the next 5 years, and what concrete decision would most reduce the risk of that mistake?
Okay, I think there's many mistakes we could make, but I think the biggest mistake we could make is not to do enough research on how we can coexist peacefully with intelligent beings that are more intelligent than ourselves, but that we created. Since we're creating them, we still have a lot of options. We create them, but we should be very careful, because if we create them so they don't care about us, they will probably wipe us out.
It's quite chilling for me to hear you, of all people, the end of your sentence there.
Well, we've never been in this situation before, being able to produce things more intelligent than ourselves. We can't do it yet, but nearly all the experts agree that within the next 20 years we will be able to. And of course, in many areas, they're already much smarter than us. So we don't know what it's going to be like, and it seems to me very urgent to do a lot of research on how we can coexist with them, and very little effort's being put into that at present.
What would you compare it, the threat of this kind? You seem to see it on the horizon.
Well, different experts have different scales for this. So quite a few reasonable experts think it's going to happen in the next few years. I think it'll be more like 10 years. Almost all the experts think that it will happen within 20 years. So that's the sort of timescale we're dealing with.
And that's the point. AI becomes more intelligent than HI, human intelligence.
Yes, and it'll not just be intelligent, but because it's more intelligent, it'll be able to be more persuasive, for example. So the idea that you could just turn it off won't work, because it'll be able to persuade them to turn it off, that would be a very bad idea.
What forms will it take, and will it be hostile to humans who it don't think are reliable? It's the sort of, in Orwell's literature, there were the proles. Do you think AI could treat millions of us like proles?
Depends how we develop it, and I think it could possibly be developed like that, and I think that would be a terrible thing.
And that would be to put malice in where effectively, and I don't understand, only you can explain, how can you take malice out if you've got two competing systems doing its version, the US is doing its version? Surely the sort of logical intelligence for them to do is to compete against each other than the other one, and possibly to be able to turn the other one off.
Well, they will compete against each other in lots of areas. Things like cyber attacks, in things like lethal autonomous weapons, in things like fake videos for corrupting elections. But there's one area in which they operate, and that is in trying to prevent these things from taking over from people. So at the height of the Cold War, the US, Soviet Union cooperated on trying to prevent a global nuclear war because it wasn't in either of their interests. And if you ask where do the interests of China and align, they align in not wanting AI to take over. So there will be international collaboration on that.
And I wonder where the first shake will be. Do you think it's going to have to take a crisis, something that forces humanity to cooperate? If you look away, we're not cooperating at the moment. We've even got a situation among NATO. They're arguing over the fate of Greenland. I don't how we're going to be able to get cooperation that you seek.
I think it'll be very hard with the current occupant of the White House.
I mean, that's your blandest criticism of the US president. Do you think it's because it's going to make some people very rich? You could do a read through the American oil companies that will be able to pump Venezuelan oil. Do you think that AI, as it's currently programmed, is going to make people, proles, poorer, and a lot of people, billionaires, richer?
So the large companies are investing huge amounts of money in it. Between them, they're investing at the order of $1 trillion in new data centers and new chips. And maybe they'll even pay for it. But there's only one way I think they can make that money back. They don't think they're going to make it back by subscription. They have to replace jobs to make that money back. That's where the big money is, in selling companies things that will replace workers. I think they thought through sufficiently what's going to happen if a very large number of workers get replaced. It's going to be a terrible thing. There's not going to be P things. Also, there's going to be extreme social unrest. As you increase the gap between the rich and the poor, you get more violence and more social unrest.
So there is a read across as well, because it's not in the interests of President Xi to have a revolt in the Chinese population. So you think that if they understood the risks of making so many people in manual jobs or manual administrative jobs jobless, understand the reason to cooperate?
Yes. So I think the Chinese leadership can probably do a better job leadership, because the Chinese leadership is worried about the people who will be unemployed. They're their responsibility. In the US, the thing is, think if we fire people, that's the government's problem. That's not our problem. If you fire too many people, it's everybody's problem.
If I just sum up this section of our time with you, how acute are your concerns? An audience that's very keen to hear from you, but would you like to just put it in a sentence that I can clearly understand how much this Nobel laureate is worried?
I think we're at a very crucial point in history when we're going to develop things more intelligent than ourselves fairly soon,